I'm the CEO of Amcham Finland, and a warm welcome to 2025's FDI Forum. I'm delighted to see so many of you here in person and streaming from home. We have a record number of attendees this year. All in all, I think the last count was 275 people tuning in to learn about FDI and to understand why this is such an important topic in this country. We want to talk today about how we attract the kind of foreign direct investment that fuels growth, creates jobs, and drives innovation. So I want to start today by a quick pulse check. By a show of hands, who here represents a foreign-owned company, a foreign affiliate? Wow. Welcome, guys. You are my people. Who here represents a Finnish company? Hands in the air. A fantastic number of you as well. And who here represents the public sector? All right. I almost think we have a third, and a third, which is exactly the kind of mix of local and global that makes Finland strong. Do we have any new members here today? We have a new member. Warmly welcome. Do you want to switch the slides? Thank you. Our community is growing. So I want to warmly welcome all of the new members behind me. I know some of you guys are tuning in online as well. We're thrilled to have you and to have you join the voice of international business in Finland and the home of transatlantic success. Now, here's a fact to keep in your back pocket. There we go. Do this. There we go. This is my favorite slide. Here's a fact to keep in your back pocket during your coffee breaks. Foreign-owned companies account for 28% of private R&D in Finland. Nearly 40% of our exports, so that's 32 billion euros, and over 300,000 jobs. They're not just foreign companies, they're Finnish companies of global origin. Their success is Finland's success. And it's one of the reasons I chose to put all of our members up together today. At Amcham, our role is to be the voice of the international business community, helping them tell our decision makers what makes Finland competitive and attractive for investment. We do this by gathering you all in a room today and connecting decision makers, championing an FDI vision for Finland. Shout out to Douglas, who was here in 2021. Where are you sitting? There you are. And providing tools for our members to make sure that when they're making global investment decisions, Finland is on their short list, and we'll also welcome Tomi Ere to talk about our Finland Fact Pack today in our program. I want to give a really big and warm thank you to our partners, AbbVie, Borenius, and Helsinki Partners, for being champions of FDI, and for really living the adage that we are more than the sum of our parts. These organizations behind me are organizations that understand collaborative spirit, and it's their support that's made today possible. So can I have a warm round of applause for these guys? Thank you. So I sometimes get asked, Alexandra, where do you get all this energy from? And averaging 50 events a year, 3 publications, countless letters, phone calls, a standing team of 7, I can tell you confidently that so much of our energy comes from our visionary members. Our visionary members you see behind me, they lead our community through policy, defense, and often good news. There we go. Who's fighting me on this thing? All right. So I know that headlines can be daunting. Global competition is fierce. Projects are sometimes stalling, and economic pressures, they're real. Actually, the other day in our team meeting, Markus Myllyniemi, who's our government affairs and policy manager, he actually questioned, Alexander, are we being too optimistic? Because look at this economic data. But the fact is, I had just come from DHL's grand opening of their 100 million euro new facility. And then the next day, I flew up to Oulu to look at Nokia's House of Radio. And when I look at our community, I see progress in action. At Amcham, because of that, we call ourselves rational optimists. Who here remembers that term from last year? All right, excellent. Welcome back. Finland has the ingredients to succeed. We have talent, we have innovation, we have resilience, and trust. What matters is how we use them and how we nurture them. Amcham's celebrating 20 years this year, though the Americans in the room will know that 21 is really what matters. I thought that would get a joke, a laugh. Okay, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. But I'm proud to represent an organization that spearheaded getting FDI into the government program for the first time ever, getting FDI aftercare recognized in government programming and budgets, raising the profile of international company investments to Finland, and in championing this theme. When I think of good things happening in our country, I think of the people in and organizations represented in this room. You all should feel very proud of the work that you're doing for this country. So before we begin, I want you to turn to your neighbor and share one thing that you're optimistic about for Finland's future. Just one thing. People online, you can pop it in the chat. If Han sees it, she'll call it out as well. So I'm going to give you 15 seconds and go. All right, let's see if I can bring you back. Can I bring you back to me? Let's see. All right, shout out some of those optimistic things. What's one thing that's going to be good in the future? Shout out something. Cecil is a great one, thank you. Guys. What? Yes, that. The youth, yes. I too believe in the future of Finland. Anyone else? The people in this room. Good one, Han. I like that one. Technology sectors, yes. I mean, I think if anyone's sitting in a room talking about 6G and AI and quantum technologies and all the amazing programming, the amazing technology that we have in this country, we have reasons to be optimistic. Okay, so I think it's that optimism and those topics that'll carry us through today. So with that, it's my great pleasure to invite our first speaker, another rational optimist who believes in getting things done, Finland's Minister for Economic Affairs, Sakari Puisto, to deliver his opening greeting. Thank you. Thank you, Sakari.
Yeah, thanks, Alexandra. Dear FDI Forum participants, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so happy to see many of Friends of Investments gathered here this morning. Finland needs more investments to set our economy on a growth path. From the government side, we are fully committed to making Finland's investment environment more attractive and to increase foreign direct investments, FDI, to Finland. The current international geopolitical and trade environment poses challenges to international investments, including FDI, to Finland. On the positive side, Finland's investment environment has many strengths. There is a great number of major investment projects in the pipeline in Finland, and several projects already in the implementation phase. A large share of these projects relates to the clean transition of the economy, both in energy production and in industry. To make Finland's investment environment more attractive, several measures have already been implemented during the governmental term since 2023 or are currently being implemented. These measures include the following. For example, permit procedures on investments are being streamlined, and the so-called one-stop shop model for permitting is about to start. the new multi-sectoral Finnish supervisory agency will begin operations on 1st of January 2026. The investment task force operates across ministries, led by my ministry, the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Employment. This task force focuses on the investment environment of major industries and the promotion of significant investment projects. The state's equity-based investment activities have been merged under the Finnish Industry Investment Group, TESI. TESI has a strong industrial policy task that focuses on economic growth and renewal and the promotion of investments with additional capitalization by the government. To ensure competitive electricity pricing, the government will, among other things, ensure that Fingrid, the electricity transmission system operator in Finland, has the necessary investment capacity to support new industrial investments in Finland. The government is implementing grant and tax credit schemes for significant clean transition investments this year and will introduce an aid scheme for the capture of bio-based carbon dioxide. The tax credit for clean transition investments will continue based on the European Union new Clean Industry State Aid framework. The tax credit scheme received 54 applications just last week, actually, and the total volume of investment applications exceeded 20 billion euros, which is quite remarkable, I have to say. The corporate tax will be reduced by 2 percentage points to 18% starting in 2027. I'm confident that Finland's path will be founded on innovation-based growth. The government is committed to supporting companies' research and development activities so that the public and private R&D investments together will account for 4% of gross domestic products by 2030. This aims at increasing international and domestic R&D investments in Finland and making Finland a more attractive destination for R&D organizations. Private R&D investments are crucial if we want to achieve the 4% R&D expenditure target. The funding provided by the state encourages companies to aim higher, to take on more risk, and to increase their R&D activities. The growth of R&D requires a more active role of small and medium-sized businesses and considerable investments by large companies. Cooperation between companies and research organizations is also a priority for R&D funding. An active, well-functioning innovation environment, interesting partners, and a world-class research infrastructure are factors that help Finland attract more foreign R&D investments. One great example in this space is Finnish quantum ecosystem, which now consists of the Technical Research Institute of Finland, VTT, and both Finnish and international companies. This is based on research that started in Finland in the mid-1960s by the work on low-temperature physics and the low-temperature physics lab by Professor Olli Lounasmaa. So long roots there. Now we have some of the world's leading quantum computer companies here, one of which, IQM, last week received 275 million euros funding round from, among others, the US-based 1011 Ventures and the Finnish state's investment vehicle, TESI. On this topic, I also want to mention that I am leading a quantum technology business delegation to the US next week, starting from Monday. One of the key factors in attracting international investments to Finland is also ensuring the availability of specialists and a highly qualified workforce. To achieve this, we must not only rely on the talent already present, but also maintain a consistent effort to bring top international professionals to Finland. Their expertise, innovative capacity, and global networks are essential drivers of growth. Dear friends, the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Employment is happy to continue the dialogue with international investors and international companies. We do not only engage on national levels, but also in some countries on a more regional level. For example, in July, recently we opened a consulate in Texas to help Finnish companies to do more business there. The consulate also promotes Finland in general, and as part of that, investments in Finland too. In addition to the consulate in Texas, Finland also has a cooperation agreements with Maine, Michigan, Minnesota, Washington State that is, and Colorado, as well as with Texas. Of course, much of the FDI inquiries come from the companies directly to Finland, and in many cases to Business Finland's Invest In unit. It is said that getting a new customer is much more difficult than selling more to an existing one. And thus, we also try to make sure companies that have already invested in Finland are happy. On this topic, I want to mention the investment roundtable with foreign companies who already have invested in Finland. This took place at the ministry last May this year. We also discussed the Finnish regulatory framework, talent availability, ease of doing business and how to enhance it, as well as the investment environment in general. Many of the things I mentioned earlier that we are working on were mentioned by the major foreign companies that participated in the event. Like, for example, the tax deduction scheme was anticipated, access to stable and affordable electricity, appreciation for the Business Finland Veturi program, permitting in Finland. We also got good constructive feedback on some areas where we could do more on. A more predictable regulatory environment, better structures for foreign companies to do joint R&D with Finnish companies, and strikes that are quite bad, or have been quite bad in Finland. This is a tough one, but this government has done actually many pro-business labor reforms, so we are improving the situation. And I plan to run a similar roundtable that will be arranged again early next year to get up-to-date feedback from our foreign investors. As we need continuous dialogue between the government and international businesses, I have on my part decided to arrange 3 other roundtables still this year. The first one is on cryptocurrencies, stablecoins and blockchain. This roundtable will bring together the government and the industry to discuss opportunities and challenges with the aim of encouraging healthy growth of this sector. The second one is on fintech in broader terms. And the third one will bring together foreign financial investors, mainly foreign venture capitalists and private equity companies, to discuss their interests and potential hurdles in investing in Finland. The yearly FDI forum organized by Amcham also provides an excellent forum for discussion on investment topics, and I'm very grateful for your efforts in this space. I wish you a fruitful and lively exchange of ideas today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Puisto, for those important opening words. Now, Han, I will need your help. Let's turn to the global race for green investment. With Finland's strong commitment to climate goals, green investment is still incredibly relevant for our country. Finland has the potential to be a leader in green steel, hydrogen, wind power, and beyond. But we face tough competition. Indeed, our cities also face tough competition. Our municipalities face tough competition. What makes investors choose one country over another, one municipality over another, one city over another? How can cities and municipalities position themselves at the top to succeed in attracting future investments? To explore this, please welcome our longtime friends and author of Amcham Finland's 2021 FDI Vision, Douglas Vandenberg, who's the managing partner of Next Zones and founder of Next Zones, and then also major contributor to Amcham Finland and Business Finland's joint barometer, Finland as a Business Location, Sakari, assistant professor at Aalto University School of Business. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexandra. It's wonderful to be here. Yes, the clicker. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. So Douglas and I are here to talk about our book, about competing for green FDI projects in the Nordics. I'm also going to tell you a little bit of the research I've done with my colleagues at Aalto University. But why FDI is important? Based on the European Central Bank, we actually need 1.2 trillion euros annually of green investments in order to reach the net zero emission targets by 2050. This is huge, and FDI plays an important role of that, and this is why we are here. So if we look at the FDI landscape in Finland, traditionally, most foreign-owned companies are located in the Helsinki region, Helsinki, Espoo, Vantaa. So over 70% of companies are located here, and the capital region has a lot of expertise as well as resources in attracting and facilitating the foreign direct investment. However, when we look at green investments, the picture is very different. This data is based on the Confederation of Finnish Industries, Elinkeinoelämän Keskusliitto, their green investment database, which is wonderful, and we use it actually in research and teaching quite a bit. And that shows that actually 95% of green investments go outside the Helsinki region. So the green investments are also huge opportunity for cities outside the capital region. However, not all cities outside of the capital region are attractive for green FDI. So together with my colleague Tiina Ritvala and Jennifer Ötzel from Aalto University, we've done some research. We've interviewed small, medium, large cities. We've interviewed state-level players. We've interviewed regional councils as well as firms making investments. And these are the main three categories that we have identified based on our research. So first, what needs to be there? Of course, renewable energy at low cost. This is, it has to be there. There has to be enough infrastructure to get this energy to the site. There needs to be infrastructure on site, also roads, railways, deep sea port. Also, there needs to be a lot of city-owned land, because if the city doesn't own the land, when the prospective investment is coming, it's too late. But we all know this, right? We've talked about the importance of energy. But something that perhaps is not talked so much about are local ecosystem and quality of life that also need to be there in place in order to attract green energy FDI. So what is needed in terms of the local ecosystem? There really needs to be a supporting business environment. The city needs to create trust. They have to be able to create trusting relationships with the investors. There has to be a positive attitude towards the investments. We have a quote from a CEO who was saying like, well, probably only, not many cities say that we don't want these investments, but how enthusiastically they say it, how much they want it. This is where the difference goes. So we basically have to get rid of our humbleness and really be excited about these investments if we want to get them. Also, there needs to be predictability. So all the permitting processes, etc., need to be predictable. There cannot be any surprises for the investors. Also, the cities have to have some technical understanding of the requirements, what it really requires to have these investments that are aiming to reach carbon neutrality. So in that sense, the cities, the palette for their different expertise is quite demanding. Also, in terms of the local companies are important that there are local supply chains and value chains, so there are local subcontractors who can provide services for these multinationals. Otherwise, the multinationals are coming with their own multinational partners from abroad, and the local companies don't get access into these new incoming multinationals' value chains. Also, workforce is needed, as many of these investments are going outside, the capital region and to very, very small cities or even towns. The workforce is crucial. So there needs to be enough workers, and there needs to be workers who, have certain capabilities for these specific investments. But how to attract these workers to these smaller towns? And this is why we need a quality of life. So we need some culture and something, for these workers that will attract these workers to these smaller towns. Work-life balance is usually pretty good in the smaller towns, so that's definitely a benefit. But also support services are needed. So there needs to be English-speaking schools and daycares so that the foreign workers can come and have their children go to school in these countries, in these cities. So all of these factors together, so they build on the absorptive capacity that is needed to attract and also reap these long-term benefits of FDI. And Douglas will tell you more about it.
Thank you, Iris. Welcome, everyone. I'm really happy to be here. It's been a long time since I was last here. I think it's 3 years ago. I was also pleasantly surprised yesterday afternoon in flying into Helsinki because I usually, coming from Amsterdam, I usually take the KLM flight. It's the worst I can do to support our national air carrier system. But at this time I took a Finnair flight. I was really pleasantly surprised about a few things. First of all, the plane was brand new. It had 3 different classes that you could sit in. Obviously business class, it had economy comfort, premium comfort, and then it had normal economy class. Where I was sitting, obviously. But then I also saw the screens and the technology behind all the seats that you have, the entertainment system, the ability to see all the navigation of the plane. And I flew different airlines over the last 25 to 30 years, but this was really astonishing. It showed the high tech that was already embedded into the Finnair airplanes that were flying. So that was really good to see. But I'm not going to be talking about aviation or airlines. We're talking about green FDI, but we're also talking about FDI in general. And this is sort of a graph. It looks difficult, but actually it's not. We're talking about absorptive capacity, and this is a concept that we've been trying to develop over time. It's not something that is part of many FDI courses or is embedded in FDI promotion, but it basically says absorptive capacity, you can compare it with a good sponge. If you clean the house and you need to fill a sponge with water, the better the sponge, the more water it can absorb. That's the concept of absorptive capacity. And what we've noticed over the last, let's say, 10 to 20 years in working in FDI, in the field of FDI in many different parts of the world, is always that you can see the benefits of FDI really come forth and the impact of FDI have a long-term perspective. And I think that's obvious, that's many times forgotten, that it takes many years to really get all the benefits or the impact of FDI to be shown to a national economy, and that relates very much to the way local economies and national economies can absorb FDI. And the FDI is only as valuable as much as the local economy can absorb it. And here you can see, for instance, the short-term benefits. We're always focused on jobs, the capital investments. They kick in after 2 to 3 years. Obviously, the first years are investment years. I think many politicians don't realize, or policymakers don't realize, that in contrast to trade, FDI is a long-term process. Before an FDI decision is made, usually most companies, and I think most of you know that because you're representing many companies, it takes 2 to 3 years to actually start an FDI project. And then the first years are obviously not always profitable because it requires a lot of investment, onboarding of new talent, and it takes time before the local foreign affiliate starts to become profitable. If it becomes profitable at all, if it's a cost center, it's different in terms of tax purposes. And then obviously the benefits kick in for the national economy, jobs are being created, capital is invested, the GDP growth, supplier growth, because you're starting to use different third market companies to supply to your local affiliate. Productivity gains come in, perhaps some of the SDGs are fulfilled, the ones or sustainability, and skills capacity are built. But what we see over time, that there is an FDI gap because the absorptive capacity is limited. Some of the governments look away from the foreign affiliates. Some of the concerns and challenges that some of the foreign affiliates have with the local growth of the companies are not taken seriously. And that's when it comes, and this is what we see in many countries, not only developing countries, but also developed markets here in Europe, but also in Finland as well, that you see an FDI gap. So the better support that a government can give and that local communities can give, the more benefits actually come forth out of an existing FDI project that has probably been made 10 or 15 years ago. And this is moreover for FDI in general, but especially for green FDI, where it takes much and much longer to have the project profitable. It may shift to 4 or 5 years, and then even to crystallize out to the rest of the economy and to give the benefits and the impact that we are all looking for when we talk about foreign direct investment. So this is extremely relevant for green FDI as well. Another item that I would like to raise is, if you can go to the next slide, please, is, and the minister already highlighted some of the points here. He mentioned the concept of predictability. This is also an issue when it comes down to the larger and long-term benefits of FDI. 3 concepts that we've seen over the last couple of years. They have become very international as well, but also for local and national economies. Transparency in policy. Are the policies that we shape for our foreign companies, are they understandable? Are they reasonable? Are they clear? Is there a clear understanding of what is needed in terms of different policies that relate to FDI? It could be related to incentive policies, immigration policies that relate to talent, etc. Is it transparent? Most important one, that's why we've put it in the middle, is predictability. Are the policies that were in place 5 years ago, are they still in place now? And what if the government changes? Do the policies change? What do we need to take into account as foreign companies or as a national economy, that we make sure that our FDI policies or investment policies or all policies related to FDI are predictable? That's very important. And the last one is stability. Stability in the political system, stability in policies that are made. And we've just had a brief discussion downstairs this morning. We're actually working on an article writing about depoliticization of FDI. And sometimes that's important. It's important to have the leadership of FDI, politicians taking the leadership in FDI, just as the minister did, to take it serious. But it's also important to have some of the daily tasks that are related to FDI, perhaps to depoliticize this. Because if you go back to the absorptive capacity graph, you can actually see that FDI is a very long-term process. But if you look at electoral cycles, they're much shorter. And every politician wants to cut the ribbon. And sometimes that doesn't pair with each other, and it's not very much appreciated because it takes much longer for companies to really establish FDI projects, while political cycles are much shorter. So depoliticization of the practice of FDI is probably much important. That doesn't say that politicians don't have to express a specific leadership and a vision towards foreign direct investment in a country. If you can go to the last slide. So what is needed to make green FDI possible and reap the full benefits? One of the first things that is needed is an FDI mindset, and we've talked about this. This is very intangible, but FDI is teamwork. If you look at an FDI project from the perspective of a multinational company, you can actually see that there are multiple disciplines involved. There's obviously someone involved in engineering. There's the tax director or the CFO is involved. There's someone from HR involved. There's a general project manager. There may be someone involved as an engineer that understands the zoning requirements. So that needs to be met by local and national FDI policymakers with a similar team as well, where you have different people with different disciplines, with different backgrounds that can support an FDI project. FDI is also a long-term commitment, as I said. That long-term commitment needs to be met also by a long-term commitment by national governments or regional governments in which policies are very much predictable. So that's important. Also, in terms of a mindset, is taking leadership in FDI. You see many countries today that are looking at protectionism, that are looking at tariffs, to implement tariffs that affect trade, but also countries that don't take FDI seriously. While many countries, for many countries and many regions, FDI is a solution to many of the economic development challenges they are facing. So it's really important to have the FDI mindset that is important to grow and nurture FDI. Iris, the last point for you.
Something that came up from our research and discussions with the city leaders is that many of them feel like they have been left alone in these investment attraction and facilitation processes. So they were actually suggesting to have some kind of task force that would come and help them, so that, that would help them to understand what is required from the city, what is required from the state, what is required from the firm investing, how do the processes go? Because now it seems like many of the cities, some of them are small cities, so they are reinventing the wheel every single time in every city. So we would, we don't have that many resources in Finland, so we definitely need some kind of centralized planning in terms of creating this task force that would help the cities who have limited experience in attracting and facilitating these FDI projects. We have brilliant people working in cities, some of which are over here, but this is something that they were hoping to get this kind of task force. And as Douglas said, FDI is a mindset. Together it can be done, so it requires teamwork, but it definitely can be done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Iris and Douglas, for that insightful look, and not only what drives green investment, but the investment mind shift that we all need to embrace in order to look at these longer timelines. And I think at Amcham, one of the things we've spoken about for the last 10, 15 years is that timeline of investment and how long it takes. And so thinking about what are the seeds we can plant today to realize those investments in that longer timeline. Now, to help plant those seeds, our next program element is to be able to equip our investors with facts and data to help them make their decision, to help put Finland on that short list and make sure Finland is a country that is selected. So today, we're delighted to launch our third edition of our Finland Fact Pack, a resource that's designed to showcase Finland's competitiveness in boardrooms around the world. And with each edition, we've added and evolved the content to reflect the feedback from our members, the feedback from country managers, from Nordic CEOs and board members. And we are incredibly thankful for the foresight and expertise from August Associates and their team. We could not do this without them in producing this very valuable tool. So to unveil it, I'd like you all to warmly welcome Amcham board member and previous chair and partner at August Associates, Tomi Ere. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello. Okay, thank you for the introduction, Alexandra. So in my daily work, I work with my clients as a management consultant. I work with mostly Finnish companies. Often they have, most of them have operations internationally. And what I see with these companies is the same thing that you see when you read the newspapers. There should be more growth. There could be more growth. And but the growth requires these investments, investments in innovation and investments in capacity. And Finland is actually a pretty good place to make the investments. We already got very good speeches and many of these arguments, but I'm very proud to introduce, together with Amcham, this jointly produced latest edition of the Finland Fact Pack, because here we provide a lot of evidence, a lot of facts and figures to back up the arguments that have been presented in the previous speeches. So this material is aimed for you who are thinking about this question, why to invest in Finland, and to you who are pitching these arguments to your colleagues here in Finland or internationally. So like the name indicates, the Finland Fact Pack, so it contains a lot of facts. So it's 70 pages thick, and it contains a lot of facts and figures and analyses and comments and quotes, structured in 6 chapters. There is first a Finland overview, providing basic information about Finland, but the remaining chapters are around capabilities. It tells about our talent pool, the resource cost levels, benchmarks, you name it. A lot of information about the capability, the people topics. Then there is a chapter about energy and environment. We already heard about that, but here you can get the facts and figures. So like we have been told, Finland is a leader in sustainability. We have a green and affordable energy that is required for many of those investments. We are continuously developing a very supportive investment environment. So again, a lot of analysis and evidence on that, including also quotes from leading players. Resilience and security is obviously a red-hot topic, a booming area that provides, of course, the resilience for Finland, but also opportunities for many companies, again requiring investments. But that is one focus sector in this fact pack and in the discussions with the C-level executives today. And the final chapter is about the quality of life. Many facts and figures, again, that are familiar to most of us Finns, but interesting readings for the current and future expats who are considering to come here and work in Finland. So that's pretty much the content of the Finland Fact Pack, 70 pages of information, and it's available today. So it's just today published on both the Amcham web pages and on August web pages. So take a picture of the QR code, go to the web page, read it, digest it, share it proudly with your colleagues, and I think we all want Finland to grow. We all want to attract these investments. We all want to forget about that humbleness and be proud about the good things that we have here in Finland. And hopefully this fact pack provides you with the necessary argumentation, the evidence, and everything you need to continue discussing about this important topic. Thank you.
Tommy, thank you so much. I'll grab that from you. You can take that down, yeah, for now. Perfect. I'm so extremely proud of the team from August Associates and Amcham who's worked on this fact pack because in previous editions, we've had country managers come and tell us how useful it's been in selling their investment, also internally for existing investors, and we want to keep that going. So thank you so much I saw everyone lift their phones and take pictures, and I love that. All right, because doing things in a data-driven way is half the battle to winning the investment. So another factor is digital competitiveness and security. These are the foundations of modern economies, and Finland's strengths in trust, infrastructure, and innovation are key differentiators. So to share our digitalization working group's recommendations on ensuring Finland's digital competitiveness and security, I'd like you to warmly welcome the chair of the working group, as well as Amcham Finland board member, and her side hustle, head of defense and national security at Amazon Web Services, Ida Schauman. Oh. Thank you.
There are no slides?
Oh, yeah. Wait, there is a slide? But hold on, Ida's going to join me on stage to make sure that all of our members know that we're going to launch the Fact Pack on November 25th, 9 a.m. So it'll be the Leader's Strategic Investment Case for Finland. There we go.
You heard it first here.
You heard it first here. Here you go. Now you got it. Thank you, Ida.
Thank you so much, and good morning, everybody. Given my normal daily work, I love coming to Amcham events. They're a lot more cheery and positive than what I do for a living. And I have the honor of chairing the Digitalization Working Group, which is a group of companies, both international, global companies here in Finland, but also Finnish startups, Finnish growth companies, and Finnish big companies that are interested in digitalization. And as you all know, Amcham is the voice of international business in Finland, but we are also the bridge that connects policymakers to these international businesses. We aim to be both an advisor, but also a friendly critic when needed. And because we are at the midst of this government period, but we're also we have started with a new commission in Brussels. We wanted to bring forth a vision, what we believe are important factors to Finland's success. We have every faith in the fact that Finland can reap the benefits of digitalization and AI, for example, and technologies. But we do believe there is more we can do as a country to make sure that we do. And the first area where we have recommendations is AI and growth. So AI has taken the world by storm. It's one of the biggest changes that our societies is going to see in this lifetime. At the same time, what we see is that the knowledge, the use of AI hasn't gone far enough when it comes to companies. So using AI does not mean necessarily that you use ChatGPT. It means that you replace, for example, a business process with AI and are able to take a leap in efficiency and productivity that then again gives something back to the economy. And we're not quite seeing this. So what we want to see is, we want to make sure that there is enough knowledge of this. We're talking about both the blackboard in schools, we're also talking about the boardroom. So we're going to put all of you here, back in school to learn about AI. But we also want to make sure that Finland as a country is the most attractive country for AI talent. This is really a competition game, and here we need to make sure that the universities, but also the companies, are the most attractive for folks to live in. Equally, we of course want to make sure that we have the talent of the future in Finland that can serve companies who want to make an investment in Finland. Second, we always believe that when you work with the public sector, with government, that the public sector should put its best foot forward. And in Finland, we have, and we've moved a lot quicker than a lot of other countries when it comes to digital governance, digital government, digital citizen services. But still today, what we see in Finland is that when you go out into the municipalities, the healthcare regions, there's a lot of uncertainty about using technology, about using the AI. There's also uncertainty about how to actually even buy technology like this. So here we want to see more of a strategic grab from the government as well, and really to give that sense of safety and security to our public sector to move and to innovate and to really try things out and not be afraid of failure. Third, the Minister Puisto today mentioned quantum as one of the areas where we really excelled, and this is of course true. The government has launched a quantum strategy, which we're very proud of and welcome. But we also want to see a strategic leadership from the government on quantum issues, which means, for example, founding a quantum office that looks at really pushing forward these matters to make sure that we don't sort of get left behind, because the world is moving and we are definitely not alone when it comes to R&D, when it comes to development of quantum technologies here in Finland. Fourth, in this time of what I would call geopolitical turbulence, a lot of changes, especially on the political side, a lot of discussions on trade between the US and the EU. We want to be a voice that reminds policymakers that outside of politics, there is a thriving transatlantic relationship. There's thriving investments happening in both ways, and there's a large part of cooperation. So, for example, thinking of Finnish companies using American technology to innovate and vice versa. So there is an ecosystem, an interlinked dependency between these parts of the world that doesn't disappear because the US administration changes. And because of that, we want to make sure that when we do make policy, for example, when it comes to things like cybersecurity, sovereignty, and security, we want Finland to be a pragmatic voice on these issues. We do not want a dramatic voice that says that we're going to cut all ties, because that's going to be detrimental to the companies that actually use and cooperate across the Atlantic, and that look to the US, Finnish companies that look to the US for growth, equally European companies that use, for example, technology to innovate. So here we really want to see Finland take on a role which it has had so far, but I think it's going to be needed even more, of a sensible voice on sovereignty, and a voice that understands technology and doesn't exaggerate the risks of the current situation either, but does it with a clear mind, so to speak. Finally, Minister Puisto also spoke about the data center industry, the technology industry. Everything that you think is wireless is really not. It's all very physical, placed in data centers. And here we really want to see Finland take on the role as a growth hub when it comes to data center investments. We have a lot of renewable energy. We have a very stable grid, and we also have availability of land and a very cool climate, which I think that are very important when you put up a data center. And here, of course, I think predictability has been the theme that we've been looking for from the industry, because of certain decisions on taxes, for example, in Finland, where there have been very quick changes from the government. So here we're really emphasizing that, but we're also emphasizing the investment, the innovation ecosystems that can be built around these investments. And that's something where I think we shouldn't underestimate foreign direct investment also bringing other companies along when we do invest. So here the government is working on this. There's a lot of good things coming on a data economy strategy, for example, but here we really want to make sure that there is less misunderstandings about the data center industry, and more welcoming of that, because there's been a lot of discussion about this. But I will finish up here. I want to encourage everybody in this room as Amcham members to come and join us in the digitalization working group. We're a happy bunch and we are growing. And both to impact this, but also to be a part and give your voice to the work we are doing. We are fully committed to being a part of growing Finland's future. We believe in the future of Finland and the ability for Finland to grow. We think we can do better on a lot of things, but that's a constructive approach where we want to make sure that we really can reap the benefits of these huge megatrends that are hitting us, so that Finland can prosper, be even more successful in the future. Thank you so much for your attention.
Amazing, Ida. Thank you very much. I want to also note that every year at our FDI Forum, and this is our 5th year running at this time, every year we want to invite one of our working group chairs to come and share some of the work they are doing. And it's really exciting because when I look back, you can see the work that these working groups have done in the government program. You can see our members following up with them. Active now, we have digitalization, talent, as well as our life science working group. Previous groups that come together around a topic have included our environmental permitting and red tape group, FDI working group, among others. And what we do is we gather our visionary members together around key topics they want to constructively discuss and solve, and then they produce recommendations that we work with government decision makers on understanding how this would improve the landscape. So thank you very much, Ida, for providing insight into that. Now, to the heart, and I get to step behind this very serious podium, to the heart of our FDI Forum every year. We're going to launch into our leaders panel. And this is where we hear directly from decision makers who are making those decisions about investing, innovating, and growing in Finland, working with those other leaders that grow in Finland. So the leaders I'm about to invite today bring perspectives from healthcare, law, politics, research, and technology. So please, are we ready? I got to stop a second. I got to stop, because I was like, are phones coming out? No, no. All right, we're ready? Yes, excellent. So please join me in warmly welcoming Peter Kajali, the General Manager of AbbVie Finland, who's newly arrived in Finland with his perspective. Welcome, Peter. Kasper Hurler. Yeah, we can do this, yeah. Perfect. Kasper Hurler, partner at Borenius and longtime FDI champion. I think Kasper has really educated me on so many things. If I could ask Peter if you could sit on the end right there. If you guys can go in order. Perfect. Go. Okay, that's fine. We'll stay there. We'll stay there. That's good. Evelina Heinäluoma, Member of Parliament and Chairperson of the Helsinki City Council. Warmly welcome. Kalle Härki, President and CEO of VTT since August. Welcome. And Kalle, I think this is your first panel since starting, right? Yes, it is. We will be kind, right? Yeah, okay. And finally, Tommi Taskinen, Chairman of the Board at Honeywell, who is celebrating 75 years of investing in Finland. Yes, you look very young. As does Honeywell, 75 years in Finland. Super excited. So we are... What? Oh, you need a mic. I think it might be down there. All right, while Han takes care of that, I'll say we're going to begin with a moderated discussion, followed by questions from you. So keep those questions in mind as you are hearing us discuss. This is your chance to shape this conversation. Also to our attendees online, you can put those questions in the chat. I got a chance to take a look at that chat in terms of optimism, and our online attendees talked about the fact that we were a digital native country, as well as the quality of education for reasons why they're optimistic. So we see you online participants. So let's, I know we're going to get into the weeds, and we're going to have some constructive discussion around our challenges as well. But let's start with the positive. A question for all of you. What do you see as Finland's most important strength in attracting opportunities? Who wants to go first?
Well, I think if you love your land, you're willing to develop that and defend that. That's kind of pretty strong foundation.
Okay.
And I think that there is that sense. And if you have that, you also have kind of a growth mindset. I mean, this morning I was driving. I started 3 a.m. from Varkaus to Helsinki, and I looked at the dawn.
Dedication.
And I kind of thought that every foreign new investment is kind of a new dawn for the Finland. Mm-hmm. And I believe that we just need to push it up a bit more.
Fantastic.
And I think we do well.
Fantastic. Kalle, you want to go?
Okay, maybe I will continue. So I think the huge technological capability and expertise that we are having in Finland, that's really something. But maybe the challenge is that the others don't know that well. So I think there we need to work on that topic and show some can-do attitude. That will help.
Can-do attitude. Go for it. Evelina.
Yes, so good morning, everybody. Obviously, I'm looking it from a perspective as being a political decision maker. So I would say definitely the know-how. We have really educated people here, but also we have functioning public services that function, that is a value during these times. And also, I would raise that during these political times, we have a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
In Finland and in Helsinki, we have a functioning political decision-making city that functions also in the level of decision makers.
So a layer of certainty in an era of uncertainty.
Yes.
Yes,
exactly.
perfect. Bader.
So being 3 months or 4 months here in the country, I see a lot of things, actually, a lot of positive things. I think Finland has a lot of strong fundamentals, the efficiency of the processes, the government, and the infrastructure as well, and the technology here. So I see a lot of wonderful things. I'm very optimistic, generally speaking, but I think there are a lot of things can be done here in Finland. The talent, for example, fantastic. The professional kind of workforce is fantastic. Mm-hmm. I've been in different countries, and I can tell you Finland is definitely leading the way in Europe and beyond Europe from that perspective, particularly about the educated workforce. So I have a lot of things to be optimistic about here.
Fantastic. Casper.
Yeah, well, I think Finland has sort of gone its own way for decades and focused on security, resilience, infrastructure. And that may not have been so topical and maybe so sexy some decades ago, but definitely right now, I mean, Finland has strengths. We have, from a Europe perspective, we have plenty of natural resources. We have energy, mm-hmm. which and those are basically competition factors which are kind of difficult to create if you don't really have them. And we also have the infrastructure to basically support the utilization of those. And then also kind of a pretty good, predictable regulation. Of course, there's always stuff that can be fixed, and we can get back to that, but basically, so compared to many other places.
Excellent. So I'm hearing growth, technology, can-do, know-how, functioning public services, infrastructure, talent, and we knew all about security before it was cool. Let's launch into then talking about that technology can-do. When the minister talked about innovation-based growth, I immediately wrote that down, and I thought that might be a nice place for us to start today. Finland has world-class research and innovation, but a big question is how do we turn that into economic growth? We hear a lot about Finland being innovation-friendly. Are we innovation-friendly? Kalle, do you want to reflect on that as president of VTT? Finland excels at innovation, but maybe struggles with the global visibility. What do you think?
Yeah, maybe as I said already, the global visibility, maybe the others don't know that well, but we have huge amount of competence and capabilities after 4 weeks at VTT also going around. But I've been working last 5 years with startups a lot and seen a lot what kind of capabilities we have there, and there is huge competence that we are having. What we are maybe a little bit, maybe it's not the technological part, but it's the can-do and positive attitude. So we need to have the courage to do also decisions when we are renewing our industries and coming with new startups. So we need to have courage to do also bold decisions. We talk about in VTT beyond the obvious. We need to do some bigger steps in our technologies, not only smaller improvements. And that will be really crucial for us as a nation in order to renew the industry. Not to do only these smaller improvements with the R&D money, but to do also have the courage to do bigger steps.
The courage to do bigger steps, I love that. I mean, as I was preparing for this, one of those innovation areas that I was researching was that, you know, pharma is one area in Finland, or is one area in the Nordics where Finland is lagging behind. For example, in clinical trials, which bring about 10.2 million into our economy per trial. They're declining in Finland and growing in Sweden, Denmark, and Norway. We talked about thinking big, about courage. Bader, from your fresh perspective, what's missing? Are there concrete steps we could take to be more courageous in this area?
It's part of it, but perhaps I can give more color on this. So when I think about being attractive from life science perspective, it's about 3 levers. We start with the fundamentals, which I mentioned earlier about the infrastructure, governance, and educated workforce, where Finland scores very high, actually, from that perspective. And then in the middle layer, there is the economic factors. And in the context of life science, it's about the research and development. But again, Finland actually scored a little bit high, actually, on the research and development from total GDP. But if you dig a little bit deeper, you look into the private and public, you see Finland in one of the reports kind of published recently by the KPMG. Finland on the public, actually, investment it ranked 7, actually, globally. But when we look into the private, in particular, it ranked 18. And here, we're talking about life science, obviously pharmaceutical, they are very intense in R&D, and there's a huge opportunity, actually, to drive this. The third layer, which is the most important to make any country very attractive for life science, is the market access and market attractiveness. And I think here, we had a theme today about the predictability. And I think I would agree a little bit maybe that with the policy and all of this, but there's a huge unpredictability, actually, in life science. You are, as an investor, a company, you want to bring a product to the market. You want to make sure this product, the patient, they get them, for example. And this is not the case today in one of the channels, actually, here in Finland. So there's a room, actually, to make it more predictable, to work on the system to make it more certain, and as well on the speed of access. Now, in result, where I see Finland, I mean, just to give like concrete, is Finland is lagging behind. As per the same report, Finland today ranked number 10. And all other Nordic countries, they're ahead of Finland from life science attractiveness perspective. Now, the good news, again, with all optimism, I think Finland has a lot of these fundamentals. And I think they need to think about healthcare and life science as an area where it can grow. Similar to the technology, for example, and IT. You're very successful in this. But life science, I think they have a lot of things to offer, and we're starting from a very strong base, but we need to have that integrated strategy, investing more on the R&D, and encouraging pharma, and I see a lot of colleagues from pharma here, that we have commitment to invest in R&D, but we want to have more predictability about the time to access, and the certainty of access. So perhaps that could be like a simple recipe for success in life science here.
I was going to say, I mean, reflecting on what you said in terms of investing more in that R&D aspect and making sure that patients have access to the technology or the medicines that are being developed. I mean, looking at what you do in Varkaus, Tomi, you know, Honeywell is quite an innovative company, and you have also been working very locally with other partners. Can you reflect a little bit on that?
Yes, but first I want to say something about you know, the Finland and why don't we grow and so on. I think it's kind of a mentality, and of course in the company it boils down to the ownership, what owners want and what kind of a risk level we're willing to take. And I think that is probably something we need to rethink. I mean, openly. I mean, what is the risk we want to take? I mean, if you want to do everything right, buy the book, and so on and so forth, where is the risk? How do you make the opportunities? And I think that discussion is not always held. And especially when we talked about, I listened to Iris and when we're talking about the FDI study and so on and so forth. Also in the public sector, cities, municipalities. I mean, what kind of upfront investment we are willing to make in order to attract investments in the future. For example, in zoning and so on and so forth. So kind of a proactive approach, and then, I mean, I guess these risks can be calculated as well.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one thing which I think should be discussed more, that you know, as a nation, as a city, and as a companies, you know, what kind of risks we are willing to take.
Casper wants to immediately respond to Tomi.
Well, I would actually want to comment what was discussed here before. I think sort of one of the things we would need to work on culturally in our society, I mean, Evelina mentioned here that we have a strong public sector, and that's a good basis. But what I think is that what is a weakness for Finland is that the link between private and public is too weak. So it might be that culturally we're trying to we're thinking that it's something wrong with the public engaging too much with the private, that there's something sinful about sort of and something we're compromising some standards if we're doing that, but we're missing out a lot, and there's too little discussions ongoing between the public and the private, and I don't think each side kind of understands each other enough, and I think there we have a lot of possibilities to create opportunities.
Yeah, I think one city that does this so well is actually Helsinki, because that's one of the reasons Helsinki partners wanted to be so actively involved in this, because of the understanding of that link of how important it is for public and private to collaborate. Yes, but Tomi, let me just follow up with both of those for Evelina, because Helsinki does compete with other northern capitals, and I'm reflecting, Tomi mentioned having courage, taking more risk, public-private discussion. So when it comes to innovation and investments, how do you think Helsinki is doing in terms of differentiating itself from competitors? Is it showing courage, as Tomi mentioned, working public-private? What do you think?
For sure, it's a tough competition, and I actually totally agree on this. And I've been trying to also work as a bridge builder, because we have a mentality of relying on public know-how. But there's so much from the private sector, especially here in Helsinki, that we can also learn from. But I would like to say also that we have, because when we are talking about the local city councils, we have a lot of strength here. For example, our new strategy in Helsinki City Council was approved with a large majority, 81 city councillors out of 85 were in favor of this 4-year strategy. So that brings a lot of, I think, certainty into politics. We have long processes in investments, so obviously the investors need certainty.
Yes.
So I think that is one key aspect in our city council that we are doing well. Obviously in Finland we have over 100 years of municipality experience, so this is something I think is our strength definitely during these times also.
Thank you, Evelina. Now, Tomi, you grasped it.
Bring me on the line. So.
Yes, of course.
But
you're on the
Kasper,
line.
you touched me. You touched me. That's why I wanted to speak. So, yeah, about this kind of public sector and private sector. I mean, the small city that I live in, and our company is. I mean, there was no city before. I mean, business came, and then city came thereafter. So, in the DNA is the thought that there has to be business, there has to be investments, and so on and so forth. Otherwise, we don't exist. And I think that has pretty well transpired also to the city council, politicians, officials, and so on and so forth, as well as to the companies. And I think there's a great cooperation also with respect to the foreign investments that I mean, if somebody's coming or considering and so on and so forth, so everybody is on board and trying to support that, you know, making that happen. So that's kind of the big thing, and that's the key. Without that, it doesn't work. But one thing which now is missing is the government. I mean, I mean, Varkaus is one example, but there are others. We are making 800 million export. Iisalmi is around about the same, and so on. But we feel that the services that actually companies funded, you know, 100 years ago or something, and then they went to state. Now, state is kind of withdrawing from that. And there was also in the Iris's presentation about the quality of life and these matters. I mean, if, you know, hospital and these types of things fade away, you know, that starts to kind of nag the you know, the great groundwork what exists. And that's something that we are deeply concerned that we have great kind of a local teamwork with all the stakeholders, but state is taking like exit in a way. That's how it feels at the moment.
Evelina had her hand up. Go ahead.
I totally agree on this, and I think in this world also the local decision makers need to realize that this is something that is happening, and in Helsinki and in the capital region as a whole, I think we as cities need to take more action, and we have a lot of things happening here. We are building the startup ecosystem that is now functioning really well. We have cooperation with the universities for applied sciences, and the city is doing also its role. So it's creating campus incubators. And so there are many things that I think the municipalities now need to take into consideration, that the state isn't a big player anymore. So the cities need to take a role, and that is actually something that is happening already I think in the rest of the world as well, in big capitals.
So it's working in Varkaus. We're working on it actively in Helsinki. Kasper, when you mentioned this gap between public and private, is there something that's missing and that you think would bridge that gap?
It's partly a mindset thing,
We
I
come
think.
back to the mindset.
I think we would need to hunger more for growth,
Yeah.
and not be so complacent. But that comes. Yeah. So.
Okay. So then, I mean, when it comes to pondering more for growth, we're looking at Finland's strategic choices forward. We need to make a decision that we're going to be more courageous in certain areas, to have more of a risk appetite. I often reflect on the fact that Finland cannot do everything. And it's really interesting to hear some of our members deliberate, for example, Denmark's political choices around focusing on wind power and pharma as development areas. Kalle, from your vantage point, what are those sort of special growth opportunities or focus areas where we should be bolder and more growth-oriented? Perhaps you could even provide a few examples of sectors that you think should be focused on.
Easy question. So how to make Finland rise again, just with these couple of technologies? No, but there is a lot of capabilities. But maybe just to comment also to this, we are talking about cities and companies, but I think one of the main reasons for the big companies not taking so much risk is the stock exchange side. When we are talking only quarters, we are living the 3 months cycle. I have been responsible for Autotex R&D, and I know what it is in practical life. And that's something that we need to focus on, that we need to have really courage. And then states and others supporting also financially through Business Finland and so on. That is really crucial for our growth. But then maybe to come to these new technologies or technologies we heard already from the minister. So quantum technology is one of them that has very high promise. So we could be working with a really, really good ecosystem on that one. And we are working with VTT, but also other stakeholders very strongly now to build up that ecosystem. And that has a really really great opportunities for us. But obviously there are many other technologies. We are working, there is on healthcare, there is a lot of things we can do on that side. We are doing also on energy sector, like examples like Steady Energy, which has a spin-off from VTT, to have new type of energy, smaller units. There is a lot of things that we can do on that side. And obviously there are a lot of on the biotechnology side. So we are doing a lot with the biochemistry and biotechnology. We can do proteins nowadays in already synthetically and so forth. So there are many different kind of opportunities. But obviously there will be choices to be made. And actually we have just started in VTT the strategy process, and it will be very important that we do decisions also in Finland based, a little bit similar, looking what the others are doing, because it's a cluster work. So we need to have, it's like a teamwork. So we need to have the universities, research centers and the industry working together. And then we can really have an impact on our society.
Since you mentioned your strategy session, I have to ask this follow-up because Finland's facing a difficult economic situation according to basically every metric we can see. I mean, what are those difficult decisions we have to make to ensure growth trajectory? One of the hardest things when we were working on the Amcham strategy is, what do we say no to? We've got 22 different industries represented in our organization. Where do we say no? Where do you think what are those hard decisions we have to make then, Kalle?
From political side, I'm maybe not the right person to start what to do not, but I for sure we need to do and continue and putting money on R&D. If we don't do it, we don't renew our industry, and that's essential for our success in the future in Finland. So.
Yeah, well, we need to renew our R&D, and in order to make R&D work, we need specialists, experts, talent. Bader, Finland can't survive without expat leaders and workers just like yourself. What practices from other countries have made you feel welcome as an expat leader? You have traveled and lived abroad extensively, and we've been talking about mindset. What are those things that really help Finland attract more
I think,
executives?
again, I mean, for any business leader to come here and to start thinking about investment, there are a couple of things that you need to think about. Like, I want to invest, but there's a level of predictability. This is one thing, and that I can contribute. I can bridge to here. For example, in Canada, as a pharma company, AbbVie, we were contributing actually not only by making our product available and investing in the R&D, we invested actually with biotech. So we were providing support to biotech and making them thriving. Just statistically speaking, for biotech companies, it's been shown that when they partner with big pharma, the probability of success is higher. Just to give you a little bit of statistics here, so in the last between 2012 and 2022, in biotech, there were like perhaps venture capital kind of support for biotech companies in the US, around 650 companies, in Europe 171. And out of these 171, there were none in Finland, and there were 23 in Denmark and 14 in Sweden, and perhaps 8 in Norway. And this gives you something, like, is basically how R&D is bringing these big pharmas and bringing biotech that can perhaps invite for investment. So basically, when you feel yourself, you can contribute, you can make your product available to the patient, and you're representing really the patient, that's really where you feel like you are welcome. Now, at the personal level, honestly speaking, I feel very lucky to be here in Helsinki. It's a wonderful city. The process has been so far very easy and efficient. I'm struggling a little bit with the language, especially when I go to supermarkets and buying milk in particular, because there's like 100 types of milk there. The other day I bought a milk, but I found out it's something else. But at the personal level, it's been really very welcoming. I think from business perspective, it's all about the predictability and making life science more attractive here in Finland.
All right, thank you very much. In a second, I am going to open up for questions to the audience. So those of you who have burning questions on your mind, keep them going for just a second. And I will ask you to raise your hand in a moment. And when you do, please do make sure to say your name and your company so we know where you're from. But one of the topics that I literally cannot leave this stage without raising is predictability. Because on Douglas's slides, that was one of those predictability, stability. You know, Casper mentioned in general the situation is quite good, but it's the #1 topic that keeps coming up when we talk about FDI with our investors. And Finland is seen as stable, but recent experiences have created, let's call them unpleasant surprises. So for example, there have been cuts in R&D funding. There's the data center electricity tax case, changes in immigration policies in Finland. There's the wind power clearance requirements that's made it more difficult to attract wind power investments. There's a longer list, but in the interest of time, and permitting delays, as I look over at Casper, who spearheaded our permitting work, are another one. I really do want to look at this stability and predictability angle of investment. Casper, you've worked very closely with our recommendations, for example. What kind of message are these changes sending to international investors? And how do we ensure that we can be more supportive going forward? Are there any kind of fixes that we should be considering?
I would kind of like to start on a very general level. Investment decisions are made by people, and that means that it's not just kind of an Excel sheet which you look at and get the result. And therefore, basically, the signals which government sends on policy are really important. Mm-hmm. And what I would strongly advise sort of our decision makers to be mindful about would be not to surprise businesses by these sudden, real drastic changes. One tweet on electricity tax basically made us lose maybe a couple of billions of investments in the data center space, even though that was kind of probably mitigated, but the harm is already done, because Finland has this perception among investors that are looking at Finland, that Finland is a pretty kind of very transparent and also reliable environment. This is one of the strengths for our society. This is one of the drivers for somebody. You can maybe you can think that, well, I can do with the smaller returns, but I'm seeking kind of predictability instead. So we should not ruin that kind of brand by kind of making these sudden moves. Then, I mean, if there's a policy need to kind of to change something, that's understandable. But kind of give a warning or kind of consult or bring people to a round table and discuss, we have this issue, we need to solve it, rather than sort of a very, very sudden sort of policy change.
Bader.
I just want to comment on the predictability as a concept, generally speaking, and perhaps giving like a global perspective, because we keep talking about the uncertainties of access here in Finland for medicines and all of this. And they were the same situation 10 or 15 years ago in China, for example. I just want to give this example. Of course, we're talking about different scale. There was a lot of unpredictability. Actually, we were sitting as multinational company in a board. I mean, nobody talked about China. But at the point in time, China did very good things. They came up with their vision of 2030. And they said the following, like, we're going to have AMA, which is accelerated market approvals, an RDL process, which is about the approval, and access is going to be simpler. And we're going to drive the R&D spending in pharmaceutical within China. And they say, like, with this vision, perhaps, like, we're going a comfort or sense of productivity to pharma. If you want your product to be licensed and approved in China, you have to have a percentage of patients in your clinical trials, Chinese, around 20-25%. What we've seen in result of this. So R&D in China over year, actually, it's been growing around 21%. In Europe, around 4%. And today in China, we see today the growth and the investment in R&D in China is very much comparable to Europe. But what is more important, the new molecules entities in China, generated in China and born in China, are equivalent to the one in Europe. I can tell you, 13 years ago, we're sitting, nobody was talking about China. But today, China, with the access, with their vision, with this divine strategy, they brought a lot of productivity to pharma and to say, yo, pharma, you're not going to be a cost anymore, you are an investment. Because growth and investment is all about more people, more R&D, and more innovation. And this is what pharma provides, actually, more innovation, more R&D, and more productive people. So this is one example about how assuring investors and big companies about predictabilities, that you're going to get access, for example, that bring investment subsequently to this. So this is just perspective about China and how they really came up with this integrated strategy to drive investment.
Thank you. I think that's a great example to reflect on. I always come back to our FDI vision, how important having a strong vision is, and then a strategy. And Evelina, you shared a little bit about your strategy, which is fantastic that you all have come together to provide that 4-year predictability. However, when I think of what Douglas shared about that investment chart, our investors need like 7 to 10-year predictability if there are ways to come together cross-party around that. Do you think in your mind that political decision makers understand the sense of urgency and importance around predictability? Are your friends around you kind of hearing what business is saying?
Well, that is actually a good question. Well, I think obviously you need to understand how the city council work operates, because there are only a few people, basically the mayors of the city, that work full-time in politics and in the city politics. All of the rest of the city councillors do their work on their free time. So obviously that has an influence on this understanding. But I'm a big believer of discussion that brings more information. So I think in this sense also, I think at least in my experience, every time I sit around a table with private investors, I've always learned a lot from this predictability and how the minds of the investors work. So I think there's a lot of actually strength in this sense. And we as a Finns we have a low level of hierarchy. So we can always, investors can always call us and invite us to the table. So I think the discussion brings a lot of understanding, also in the sense how the city council works, vice versa, obviously. Yeah. But I think in the city council work, it's important to know your strengths. So in this sense, we have obviously in Helsinki invested in our strengths that are in the top level know-how in life sciences, in deep tech, and also in the climate issues. So because we have few resources, we need to know what our strengths are.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, Tomi, reflecting from the corporate side, when you look at Varkaus, like what did the local decision makers get right? For what are those best practices that maybe other locations or us nationally should adopt?
Yeah, I just can't speak on Varkaus' behalf, but I think they listen. They are interested in what's going on. And I think that like what there was like a task force. Yeah. So I guess the model that how do you attract and nurture potential investment so that you have like it's kind of an account management. Yeah. And I think that is something that more to that into the public sector that you are really nurturing. You have a desire to capture those investments. And then you build the case. When somebody comes, you immediately have the technical director, somebody who's responsible for zoning, mayor, whomever is needed. And of course, if you have some core technologies, whether it's energy, some forest industry, and so on, you probably should have those experts in your, development company or somewhere, so that they understand the substance, can speak the same language. And of course, if there's like a background from the business. I'm so happy that Kalle comes from business and startup life, and now he's the chief of VTT. So that's fabulous. I think that gives like that kind of a mindset. And I think the one thing, if I would need to say, is that if you call and ask help, will be done. We will do this. So the attitude is not, well, this is according to the law or whatever. No, we'll get this done somehow. Yep. That we want to solve the problem, and that's problem-solving attitude.
That can-do attitude.
Absolutely.
That Kalle was talking about. All right, I'm going to open the floor to questions. I have a few more of my own. All right, go right ahead. Your name, your position, your organization, so our panelists know who you are. Yes, Mike is handing the mic.
Mikko Sarela from the Professional Society for Engineers and Architects. I look at FDI numbers for Finland, Sweden and Denmark. Finland is a bit less than 0.7% of GDP. Sweden and Denmark around 4.4, so more than sixfold what we have in Finland. What's the main problem that causes this, and what can we do to resolve it?
Wow, that's a big question, Mikko. Who wants to tackle it? Well, how do we solve this? Casper's hand is up, and then Bader, go for it. Go
okay,
ahead.
well, I'll say shortly. I think I'm not a specialist on this subject, but I would say that I think we could do much more on sort of the cooperation between research and the private and the industry, and kind of to not compromising, of course, the quality of the research, but sort of also kind of making sure that the foundational research also kind of converts and gets commercialized. And I think maybe other countries are doing a better job there.
Bader?
I think perhaps the key word is just to be more intentional by deciding which sector that we think that we can attract more fund and investment. And after this, just to have this defined vision and driving it with a clear execution plan and build on what we have as the strength in this country and making bold decisions. I think this came several times by making it more predictable, making bold decisions, and thinking about becoming more visionary to drive growth on the long term. It's not going to be short term, it's going to be long term.
Long term, yeah. Go for it, Kalle.
Maybe to comment on that, I think if you want to have investments in, you need to be very good at something. And that's why it's important that we make choices that where do we want to go. Just an example on quantum technology. We want to be there, a star in Europe, star in the world. So that will bring also investments. That will also bring best experts to Finland. So that has a huge impact. So we need to make decisions where we want to be really world-class level and then work on that one proactively.
Perfect. Go ahead, Tommy.
Yeah, and I think we need big visions. Something really big, not just small things, a little more R&D and so on. And one thing is that we decide to become as a green energy superpower. We will build 10,000 windmills basically to the eastern border. There is a resilience program if you're interested. That's the one big vision. And all what we do, I mean, we do business and at the same time we improve our defense capabilities. So basically everything, windmills, roads, infrastructure, shelters, everything is like dual use. So we built the economic infrastructure in a way that it can be used also in defense. And when we have a defense in good shape, I mean, we can fund that, and maybe we can attract even more investment. So that's like a one possible scenario.
All right. Ted, go right ahead.
Ted Apter, Suomen Economist. I like the discussion about the mindsets, and Tommy was into about raising standards and having a better vision. What steps need to be taken if we want to have movements towards 3 to 5% annual growth for GDP in Finland?
You mean with the mindset?
I mean, what do we actually need to change drastically? For instance, you mentioned green transition, windmills. What are the things, talent, other things do we need to do very differently than now to actually have a much more growth in Finland?
Well, like I said, I think we need some vision where to believe in, and of course facts behind that. But when we're starting to think about, like, for example, the energy, I mean, we're going away from fossil fuels. Electricity demand will grow double, triple in upcoming years. And what do we do with that? And I think, speaking, for example, Eastern Finland, it's pretty empty in a way. Of course, I understand the defense problems, meaning that the technology with the windmills and so on, I mean, radar sensor systems are not yet in the area they should be. But I think that the imagination of engineers is unlimited. So I think there are possibilities. So I think that's something that we should really look into and again, invest up front, because I think there's a possibility. And the other thing is that like 50% of our biogenic carbon dioxide is being produced in Eastern Finland. And if we transform that to methanol, that's like 11 billion business opportunity per year. So these are the steps that I think we should look into details and invest in. And actually, speaking about this resilience program, Sitra, Finland Investment Fund, as well as Lappeenranta University LUT is part of that program. So that's like one really that we do something. I don't have a other silver bullet, but that's like one thing.
Mm-hmm. Casper wanted to comment.
Tommi said here, I mean, yes, we would need more renewable power in the future. We have all those projects, but it's not feasible to build more renewables right now. What we need is consumption. We need a lot of investments that consume energy, and we have numerous, and we have a very, very big pipeline of those renewable projects that are just waiting for somebody to kind of use that electricity. So that's the way the dynamic works. Finland will not be without electricity. It's a market-based thing, so there will be more electricity produced when there's more electricity used. So we need to kind of, and we need to create, we need to work on a regulation that somehow sort of creates a market for these new products, because nobody will take a risk and invest 1 billion into some electrical fuels, sustainable aviation fuels, if you don't have a buyer. At least no bank, it's not a bankable project, so no bank will come and project finance that for 1 billion if you don't know to who you will surely be selling it. So we need to kind of create a regulation that creates a market for these products. So basically their regulation comes in. Without regulation, we will not kind of get that new growth.
But that sounds like it'll take a long time, and we've been talking about how we need to move quicker. I mean, what is the risk if we don't move as quickly as we need to?
I think we will lose out. I mean, our strengths will deteriorate. So currently, Finland has the advantage of a very strong electricity grid, minerals, and other strengths, and plenty of renewable energy. But it's not like Holland and Ireland would be sitting on their hands. They're investing, I think Ireland is investing 10 billion euros into their grid. So we have a window now with the best grid in Europe and most below zero electricity prices annually. So there's kind of too much production, too little use. So this is now kind of when we need to fast-track investments into that space, because otherwise we will kind of lose that. In 5 years' time, we're not in the same position.
Yeah. Okay. Egbert, go right ahead.
Egbert Schram, CEO at the Culture Factor Group. So hearing the word mindset all the time, I'm like, okay, business is going to go well in the future for us, because that is what we do, help people understand mindsets. Now, coming to my question, Finland is a relatively small country, so is my home country, the Netherlands. Finland invests a lot in R&D, so does the Netherlands. But the Netherlands is economically a lot more successful, because the focus is not necessarily on the R&D itself, but on the commercialization of the R&D, which is a dirty word in Finland. To which experience, or in your experience, when you have interacted with growth companies, for example, Kalle, you have the SME background, do you see now that, for example, in VTT, which does a lot of R&D, but has also been extremely successful in creating commercial spin-offs, and how can those lessons be applied to the broader Finnish range?
Great question.
Thank you for the great question. So first of all, on the issue is that when we are doing R&D, we need to work closely with the companies together. So it's not about R&D doing some inventions, but really to have that commercialization. And that means that we need to work very deeply together. So for example, VTT is doing most of the research, is doing with companies that are already established and working with them together, because the commercialization is then happening with the companies. And then obviously we have been very successful now with the new spin-offs, and actually we have put a launchpad platform where we are supporting. So we are not just putting the person or the persons who have developed the innovation that just you try something, but it's very important that we are telling them how to do the commercialization, supporting that, and then we need to work as Finland OY together, so we need to have the finance in place also. So Business Finland is very crucial in the start. TESI is also very important, or Finvera. They are very important in the ecosystem. So we need not only to have the technological knowledge, the commercialization, but also the financial capability. And we need to play together as Finland. And that will be very crucial for the success.
Evelina.
Yeah, I want to mention that one thing that is actually a good thing as working in the local level is that you can move quicker. So you can, when you realize there's something that the companies or the public needs, you can do decisions quite fast. And this is actually something that we have done here in Helsinki, that because this is a big issue here also. So we have this project called Campus Incubators, that the city is also giving resources so that the universities for applied sciences can work also with the private sector and with the commercialization also.
Thank you. I want to note that I think our cities are actually doing really well in Finland as a whole. I've been working on this type of topic for 10 years, and I've never seen cities be as proactive and take as much initiative sort of in this past, I would say, 24 months as in the 10 years previous. I know there's a question over there, and then I want to go to Douglas because I saw him indicate. Go ahead.
Thank you.
The mic
Laura Koivisto-Kasal from MDI, which is part of Finnish Consulting Group. I have a question about the population, because you need people for your businesses. So the Finnish population growth only comes from immigration. In the next 13 years, 37% of the current workforce is going to retire. That's a lot of people, almost 1 million people. So the Finnish immigration politics obviously plays a role here. In your view, what kind of role does it have in not only attracting, but also retaining talent in Finland? Thank you.
That's a big one, and I'll also add that in the chat around this event that I'm monitoring, that is really where the core conversation is. So, immigration. Let's go ahead, Evelina.
Well, as an opposition politician on a national level, I could say many things that could be done differently. But as a decision maker in the city level, this is something that we are really trying to work on. We have like an own paragraph in the strategy that we as a city want to say that everyone is welcomed here, and we want to offer services also for the families that are not so fluent in Finnish right away. So we want to offer daycare services in English, also schools. So because it's a question if the family enjoys it here, or if the family wants to move here. So we are working here in the city really closely to attract the talent and to attract different kinds of talent, and so that they could also imagine themselves spending more time here than only a few years.
Evelina, I have to ask a follow-up question to that, which is how can we shift people's attitudes then? Politicians especially, but shift those attitudes from not in my backyard to yes in my backyard, to help citizens understand the economic value of international investment into their communities. I mean, there's all sorts of directions to take that in, but we know that companies can't thrive without talent. To increase international investment, we need the best people, and we need to attract them here. So how do we help other politicians and other citizens understand that value?
Well, that's a big question. Obviously, I think it's a question also about the investment itself. So there are many types of situation where, for example, I could done a lot more to understand the citizens, what they fear, what they need. So I think, looking at it as a whole, I think it comes down to to having those discussions, having decision makers meeting investors, as I said, for city councillors, it's not their daytime work. They do it on their free time. So it's a question of whether they acquire this information also. And for the citizens, well, it's our job as decision makers to bring the information and also the understanding that getting this investment here in the city helps also the citizens in many ways.
Yeah, thank you. Casper, and then Kalle.
We need to work on the mindset of this country and these people. I think we're still stuck in some type of 1970s sort of thought that it's a lotto voitto to be born in Finland. This is not such a special place. It's cold and it's rainy and snowy most of the year. So I mean, professionals rather go to Amsterdam or some other hub which is much more cool than this place. So just to kind of understand the competition situation, both regarding talent, but then also regarding investment. So we should kind of open our eyes, and I would encourage everybody sort of on all levels to talk much more to those that think about Finland as an investment, to see, to kind of get a sense of the competition environment and to understand that we need to compete, both about these people, but also these investments. It's not like Finland would be the best place in the world to do business, and we kind of just gravitate everything here. And if we don't kind of change that mindset, and that's why it's really important to talk to the foreign companies that are thinking of Finland as an investment target, because the same attributes which make them choose Finland over something else are the attributes which will keep our domestic companies investing here. If we don't get foreign investments, that's a big alarm signal for us also losing our national companies and having them invest somewhere else.
I will also note that I was really glad to hear Minister Puisto mention those roundtables. Amcham's for a long time been a champion of the Foreign Investors Council inside TEM, which went quiet for a little while, and we're really glad to see that is coming back through these roundtables. Kalle had his hand up first, and then Bader.
Yeah, maybe just to comment, I think we are talking a lot about this topic, so this is in the news and everywhere all the time, but we need to do concrete actions. And for example, at VTT, we are having with the Espoo mayor, with Kai Mykkänen, I have frequent meetings with him, and we are raising this up. So we need to have concrete. We are talking about, we have a lot of foreigners working at VTT, so we are talking about what about kindergartens, what about schools, what about workplaces for the spouses, and so on. So it's concrete topics, and we are actually, I'm having every 3 months with the mayor a discussion about a lot of things, but this is one of them. And we are then trying not to just wait as a company that the city would do something, but we are also proactive. So the companies need to be also proactive on working on this topic.
Thank you. Bader.
Because I disagree with Casper on one thing. I feel really Finland, and I disagree on a good way. So I think, yes, we need to change the mindset, but the first thing we need to change the humbleness kind of the mindset. I think really Finland has a lot to offer. And I live in different cities, but I can't tell you Helsinki more advanced than other cities in the world. But yeah, I agree with you as well. It's not only about bringing new investment, about retaining the investment and making the environment more favorable. So the key word here, again, it's feasibility. I think people need to know more about Finland, and I think there's less visibility about Finland in the outside world. So perhaps that will attract as well more talent, immigrants, and so on. Feasibility, I think we're lacking visibility about the situation in Finland.
We're working on it, but we can definitely do more. I know Douglas over there has a comment. Your hand was up earlier. Mike, do you want to get, oh, you have a microphone. Excellent.
I hope it's switched on. Yeah, thank you. I don't want to speak too long, but one comment I have, and it's an interesting one, and I've also got one question, if I may. One comment is this book by Maria Mazzucato, The Entrepreneurial State. It's a really excellent book, and it actually shows that much of the past innovations that are now commercialized worldwide, including the World Wide Web, and some of Apple's innovations are actually have actually been developed by the state, the US state. And I think going back to that that theme of having a state that's much more entrepreneurial would bring in much of the benefits that we talked about today. But one of the questions that I have is also about, I've been to many of these forums and conferences and events talking about FDI and what states and nations can do to attract FDI. But one of the things that I've heard increasingly over the last couple of years is what is the role of mid-sized companies? Because we all seem to be focusing on these global Fortune 500 companies that have these big flagship investments and get the red carpet treatment of any government. But some of these mid-sized companies say, we also bring employment. We create 2,000 jobs. We want to work with local companies. We have knowledge spillovers and management skills that we bring to a local economy. What is it that actually governments and countries can do to support them better because they don't have these big resources at the big multinationals? And what is it that some of the big companies can do in order to support some of these mid-sized companies to realize these investments? Because usually they don't have the time to come here, but they are increasingly becoming a large player in the field of global FDI. They're becoming much larger. So just one question on that, please.
Mid-sized companies, how can government and business support them and make sure we're getting those investments and growing them?
Well, I'm just, again, referring to Varkaus. I think the latest investment have actually been mid-sized companies. And I think one key factor for them has been also the network of other companies, bigger ones which may become as a customer or a supplier and so on and so forth. So that kind of a network and capability where you actually land your business, that has been one like a key factor. So I think nurturing that is one important piece of the puzzle. But I got just to say one quick comment to Kasper. You said about that here is cold and so on and so forth. Yeah, but I think cool is quite cool if you live in where it is 50 continuously and so on and so forth. So it can play as a strength as well. But honestly, I think it's, we play with our strength and it's global competition.
Kasper, you want to respond?
No, well, basically to Douglas here, I think from the perspective of Finland, I think that's a really, really important aspect to think about. I mean, we have many places in Finland that can attract investments, but it's really difficult to get to basically, I mean, societally to land a huge sort of multi-billion euro investment with, say, hundreds of employees to a pretty small sort of community. So smaller communities can benefit from mid-size investments because it's much easier to fit that in because you don't have to invest a lot ahead in schools and the whole social infrastructure. So it's necessarily not so that it immediately kind of causes a benefit for that society to get something really huge. So that's also an aspect. And there the mid-size and smaller investments, but spread around, also does a lot of good.
Well, time flies when you're having fun, so I'm going to wrap us up with one question that I want you to answer in one sentence if you can, which is, what is the most urgent step Finland should take in the next 12 months to strengthen its attractiveness to FDI? And I'll give you personal bonus points if you go first. Who wants the personal bonus points? Vader's got it.
I think at least from the life science perspective, I think that the country has to bring more a defined vision, which consider life science as an investment rather than a cost.
Perfect. Go for it. But Kasper, do you want to go next? Since
we have talked about permitting, which is pretty close to my heart, and the thing that I've been chairing the committee here at Amcham. So there's still a number of important initiatives which Amcham have put forward and which are also noted in the governmental program regarding permitting, which we think if with those small fixes we could expedite large investments in Finland.
And I think with our thank you, we'll add those permitting recommendations in there as well, because they were useful. Evelina, do you want to go next?
As a representative of Helsinki City, I wish that we could build together a city that we all can be proud of. I think it's about the cooperation of the civil servants, cooperation of the decision makers, and also the cooperation of the companies.
Thank you. Kalle?
Maybe one word is proactivity. So we need to proactive out to the outside world and communicate that.
be proactive?
Oh, well, I mean, there was that initiative of what about the task force? So let's set up a task force. Let's share the best practices and maybe even leads. Because in the end, if Finland gets the investment, we all win. So even though we compete inside the country, but still.
Perfect. Thank you to our panel. I've heard today that we really need to up our long-term thinking. We need to be bold and courageous and really focus on our mindset as something to develop. There is a sense of urgency, but to combat that, we need to be proactive, take initiative, and absolutely have more conversations between the public and private sector, either in formal forums or then offline on the side, so we can get closer together. So I'd like to thank our panelists. You guys. Thank you for such a rich and dynamic conversation. You guys can stay, relax. And thank you to all of you for your thoughtful questions online and in person. If there's one theme that runs through today, it's that foreign direct investment is not optional for Finland, it's essential. It's what fuels growth, creates jobs, drives innovation, and makes our economy resilient. At Amcham Finland, we're proud to be the voice of international business in this country. We champion our members' role in strengthening the Finnish economy, and we work every day to ensure that this country remains a magnet for investment. I want to sincerely thank our partners, AbbVie, Borenius, and Helsinki Partners, in making this happen. Today is not possible without your good work and your belief in the future of this country. So I'd like to carry the spirit of rational optimism with us as we continue our conversation over coffee, those of you in the room, over lunch, and beyond this forum. And I'll also add that for Amcham members especially, here's our upcoming events. Make sure to sign up. We've got a few of them that are already sold out. But as always, I like to also say welcome to our next flagship event, Amcham Finland's Charity Thanksgiving Dinner. It's also our 20th anniversary, and those of you who have been there before know why Minister Tavio during his time called it legendary. So I just love that. But for today, your action point is to download the Finland Fact Pack, to use it actively in your conversations, because we can together make sure that Finland doesn't just compete, but thrives in this global race for investment. So thank you all very much. Thank you.